Hello, Anthony.
Hello, Claudine.
We are back talking about FATCA. We thought we wrapped up, but one last thing we wanted to talk about.
And I wouldn't even say that one last thing.
Yeah.
For now.
For now. What we want to talk about is we talked about penalties for individuals not filing certain forms.
Right. For the U.S. persons who have an account. Right. That's who we're talking about.
Yep.
Well, we did talk about, but today we're talking
Today we're talking about FFIs, or foreign financial institutions. What are the penalties if they don't comply with all the FATCA laws?
Right.
Lots of digging done.
Right. We spent a lot of time because it's like, oh yeah, what is the penalty for them? What is the penalty for them? And this is what we found out. What did you find out?
Not a ton.
Not a ton.
Okay. So here's what we do know. The foreign financial institutions must report to the IRS information about financial accounts held by U.S. taxpayers or by entities in which U.S. taxpayers hold a substantial ownership interest. They're supposed to undertake certain information, due diligence procedures, report annually to the IRS and account holders, and withhold and pay over to the IRS 30% of any payments of U.S. source income. But we couldn't, I kept looking for what happens if they don't comply. There's the only single thing we could find in all our digging is FFIs that do not enter into an agreement with the IRS will be subject to withholding on certain types of payments, including U.S. source interest and dividends, gross proceeds from the disposition of U.S. securities, and pass-through payments. So I was expecting to find, the IRS is pretty specific about if individuals don't file, certain percentages, certain dollar amounts, certain things are going to happen. This seems pretty vague, and I'm not even quite sure how they would uphold.
Yeah, so I guess when a foreign bank sells something in the U.S., they have a security that, they're holding some sort of thing that they're investing, they sell something in the United States. Now, I guess now the bank in the U.S. that's supposed to send money, all of the money to the foreign bank says, whoa. We see that you're not complying with FATCA. So what we're going to do is send 30% of it to the IRS with no real identification number, because if you didn't comply, you just send it with what? There's no... Well, no, I guess if they're investing in U.S., they do have an ITIN. Okay, so you send it to the ITIN there. But I'm just trying to think, how does this really work? If you are a U.S., because the one place in the world where you don't have to worry about FATCA is in the U.S., right? So if you're selling something and if you have a foreign bank investing in something of yours, what's your trigger for you as a U.S. bank to say, hey, are you on the proper list? Where's the list published to that I know you're correctly complying with FATCA?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Within all our research, we haven't come across that, have we?
No.
Where is that? So how's this work?
It's just the U.S. being big bullies.
Yeah, yeah, there it is.
It's more of like maybe an unspoken sort of, there's nothing written, but if you don't comply,
we're going to make your life really tough.
Horse head in your bed.
Right, I think that's, yeah. You'll wake up, you don't know, hey man, look how crazy we are. I think that's really what it is. Look how crazy we are. You wouldn't believe we're crazy enough to pass this law, but we are. See? Do you really want to mess with us? Just being the wild, crazy person. That worked for me, by the way. There was a bully in the neighborhood, and he would push kids around, and I think I was 5 years old, and I went the crazy person routine, and it worked.
Like on Christmas Story, where you start beating the hell out of them?
Yes, I just went, and I really got into it easily.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I'm crazy. It works, and I think that's what you have here. Hey world, we're
so crazy.
We're so crazy. We'll do this. We'll act like we can make you do this. And it's, if you were, let's just say you were a foreign financial institution. It's like, you know what? We don't care.
Yeah.
We simply don't care. And you know what? As a bank, yes, we do have various, we're in various funds in the United States. Well, this is all I would do is just say, well, I'll have a subsidiary that's not a foreign financial bank, but it's owned by us 100%. It's registered in our country. That's the entity that will be owning anything in the United States. So when there's a sale or anything like that, the person in the United States is the institution in the United States is looking, oh, here's a corporation here. They're just a corporation. They're not even a financial institution. Here you go. So what list do you look at? for every payee to see if they're subject to a 30% withholding. You really can't. If somebody wanted to get around this,
it's sort of like being a prison guard. You've got your gun, but if those prisoners sort of all get together and decide to work together,
yeah,
you could potentially be really, really screwed.
yeah, and it doesn't. I mean, it seems like from what I see is everybody has, and I think this is what I notice with attorneys from other countries. The entire IRS stuff scares the crap out of them with good reason.
Yes.
And I think U.S. attorneys scare the crap out of them. I think the law in the U.S. is, I mean, this is where the real things happen. And there's a lot of money at stake. And there's trial by fires here. As an attorney, you learn quickly. There's a higher standard required of you. And if you don't have it, get out. Just get out or find some nice little research job. And that's what happens to a lot of people. They just don't have the tolerance for it. They can't handle the stress. It is far more stressful to be an attorney in the U.S. than anywhere else.
Oh, yeah.
It's totally different. In India, attorneys are more considered more like, I think, CPAs or something. Usually CPAs are paid more than attorneys in India. They're more clerks. That's really what it is. The whole advocacy and the hardball sort of things that go on, and just how adversarial everything is. And with that adversarial relationships that we just sort of take for granted, we're used to the crazy things that pop up. And so this is really like this is Fight Club, right? I would say that's what being an attorney in the United States is, an attorney working with the IRS. It's like Fight Club. You know, you're going to take some hits. You're going to bleed. You're going to show up to work the next day, and there'll be blood all over your desktop. And that's what you're used to. Whereas other people, the attorneys from around the world, they're a little bit more civilized. They don't deal with that. It's usually they're sort of more agreeable. And this is what I've been starting to notice. So my bias is that the legal systems are sort of the same around the world. Attorneys are sort of the same around the world. It's simply not true. And so all of them are kind of looking. They're like, look, we don't want to cause a problem. We're not here to make waves. We're not here to put our client at risk. What kind of compliance do you need done? And we'll do the compliance that you need done.
Okay.
No one's really going to stick their neck out to say, wait a second, we looked at your law, and sure, you can punish U.S. account holders as much as you want for not filing a Form 8938. But as far as we go, your one thing you can do, as far as I can tell, I mean, I went, Section 501 of the Hire Act is where FATCA, you find FATCA.
Yep.
And it looks like it takes up about 25% of the act, 20% of the act. It takes up a good portion of the act, this offset, which is supposed to, the FATCA, as we discussed before, FATCA is supposed to pay for some of the pork in the Hire Act.
Right.
Whatever. What mechanism, what is really there? Now, one of the things that we saw a press release. You saw. It
was a speech.
It was a
by
speech.
The acting attorney. Let me get her.
And this was fascinating.
Yeah.
This speech, she was giving it, and it's not. This is just when I read it, this tone is incredibly hostile.
Acting Assistant Attorney General Carolyn Ciriolo. She delivered remarks at the American Bar Association's tax section mid-year meeting. Must have been what a party.
Yeah, I don't go to those. I really don't.
She was talking, let's see, where's that great quote? So she's talking about different category banks and all of the different penalties that they have imposed. Let's see. She talks about individuals and, the continuing effort to shut down offshore tax evasion. And let's see. Okay. So the department signed the first non-prosecution agreement, said its goal is to complete the Category 2 bank agreements by year end. I'm very proud to announce that earlier this week, the department signed the final Category 2 bank non-prosecution agreement with Swiss bank HSZH, imposing a penalty in excess of $49 million. For those that are counting, in the last 10 months, the department executed 78 agreements with 80 banks and imposed more than $1.3 billion in Swiss bank program penalties. And that's not FATCA.
Right, and that's the whole thing. And it's sort of that's all true statements. But you did not need FATCA for any of those Swiss bank programs completely, and a lot of their activity occurred prior to the passage of FATCA. Okay, these are Swiss banks that were helping U.S. persons engaging in tax evasion.
This was actual criminal activity.
This was criminal activity and where there was documents, there's documents, everything was there to say,
right,
here you are doing it. You came to the U.S. and you told people not to, do this, and then they won't have to pay taxes, and you're profiting from it.
Right.
The chances of you, being extradited to the U.S., you got some exposure there. You really do. Why do that when you can just pay a fine and then, spill the beans on your customers?
Right.
Do that instead of fighting it. I wouldn't stick my neck out for that. They got you.
Yeah.
You did it.
The facts are there.
But now, so there they are. We're cracking down. These people are, $1 billion of penalties, right? Which pays for 30 seconds of federal spending. Give me a break. Wow. Ooh. Wow. $1 billion. Whoa. They're trying to make it look like, see, banks, you better comply with FATCA because you'll get these criminal charges. But as we look at it, it's like, well, if a foreign bank doesn't comply with FATCA, say, look, we're not going on our ways at all to help a U.S. person evade taxes. We're not helping anybody evade taxes. What we're after is a profit motive. That's clear and simple. And we've looked at it and we said, this FATCA compliance just doesn't make sense to us. It's far too invasive and it's going to invade the privacy of non-U.S. persons, which is intolerable. So we're simply not going to do it. Now, if that was the statement of someone, okay, they're not breaking any other law, they just refuse to comply with a law of another land. What do you have them on? I mean, what do you get them on? And as we look at, what are the penalties? What are the penalties? It looks like just this withholding of anything of the bank has come to U.S. We just talked about how you can get around that. I think pretty easily. I mean, where's the list? Where's the list of non-complying foreign financial institutions that I would say, wait a second, guys, 30% right here. I don't know where that list is published. I don't know where to find it. I would love it. I mean, it would have to be a massive list full of, I mean, how many foreign financial institutions are there around the world? And what classifies as a foreign financial institution could be weird things. It could be an offshore casino that has virtual bucks stored in some server.
And it surprises me, too. I know that the foreign countries may not want to rock the boat, and that's why they're complying. But it costs them a ton of money for all this reporting.
I mean, I guess if the country that they're in passed a law to say, if you don't comply with FATCA, we will punish you. Okay, that's something they could do, but why would you do that? Why would you say? I mean, usually there's a pretty decent banking lobby, a lot of places. Right? I mean, that's sort of like who's at your table. You have the president, the banker, right?
Yeah.
The banker's always there, right?
Yep.
Hey, he's like, no, we're not going to pass that law. Hey, we're not going to pass that law. That's what it comes down to. The influence is usually pretty significant to say, no, we don't want that. That's going to create too much of a hassle.
Yep.
So I guess that's where, the reaction to FATCA made me assume there must have been some massive penalty for foreign financial institutions not to comply.
But it sounds like it's more of a undercurrent, an undertone, something that's said and not published.
Right. We're going to come after you, but if you...
Hey, can you sign this piece of paper, please?
Right. Give us
but all you see on TV is this side.
So just say, well, we just decided not to. And again, it does not... I'm looking for criminal... for a U.S. person not to file a Form 8938, okay, the IRS could say, well, you submitted a fraudulent return. That's criminal, okay? They can get that. But how do you get a foreign bank a criminal charge for something they're not required to file a tax return, assuming they don't have a non-resident tax return to file? I don't see how it works.
I have an idea.
What's that?
I think we should just start our own country.
And see what happens?
Yeah.
I mean, that's where it is. And by the way, I mean, if anyone's listening and has, if you have the inside scoop on this and something we're missing, please leave a comment.
For sure. And we're going to, on Wednesday on our sister podcast, Parental Advisory Show, we are going to be interviewing Jim Jatras from repealfatka.com. he might have some good information. So we'll make sure to pick his
Oh,
brain.
I'm sure he will. And,
Yeah.
we do get some of our best ideas from commenters. We have great people listening to us.
Yep.
And it definitely helps us steer in the right way. So please let us know.
Yep.
If you, we've been through it. We're trying to, I think trying to find something that's not there. When do you stop looking is really the question. So we're looking for something that we don't think is there. We haven't seen any evidence of it there. Specifically, what are the penalties for a non-complying foreign financial institution other than the mandatory withholding of 30% of funds due from the U.S.?
Can't find it.
Can't find it.
All right. Well, thanks so much for watching. You can subscribe to our channel so you'll get updates on all our awesome podcasts and great FATCA information and other tax information. And yes, like and comment below and we'll get back to you. Thanks so much. IRSMedic, the law offices of Parent LLP, real tax attorneys for tough tax problems.